It is at most important to not overstate the importance of modernity, because it's the constancy that matters. In many aspects, aesthetics bring us to search for the new, the bold, the daring, the revolutionary. And in art, I think we we can live with legacies, modernities, revisitations of the past, because each individual sensitive personality in musical world revisits the very essence of what it is to be a musician. Of course, they have their own time periods, but I find that most of us musicians, we live in multiple time zones, our own, with music written today, but there are very many types of music written today. Far from a single language for all, of course, which makes it hard to understand for the audience, but also in the same day you can rehearse a Brahms trio, practice a Beethoven sonata, teach ligeti etude, organize a class to explore post-tonal music. And it's not incompatible. My teacher, Mademoiselle Boulanger, was teaching students their own individual search, who was into, in the early 70s when I was there as a child. She still was open-minded to teach her students individual interests towards serialism, post-tonality, in their own creative desires, neoclassicism. She didn't have a prioritization towards this or that aesthetically. She was also very interested in the internal roots of the musicians who came to study with her, in terms of their cultural roots, folkloric, aesthetic, um, not limiting, and not gimmicking either. The tango for Astor Piazzolla was not a gimmick. Though, of course, the problem with the musical world is that there are fashions and people decide what is serious music and what is not. So what was a hit tune in Renaissance today is a pop music tune. What was a famous aria in Mozart's 18th century, um, in fact, even later in the bel canto opera arias, people whistled those in the streets, those arias, like we whistle today a pop song or a rap song or whatever it is that people appropriate themselves the music for. And in that sense, I think only elitism creates an elite that is disconnected. Of course, classical music today in the 21st century is constantly harboring the past, but not necessarily so. There are a lot of new things to explore in the way you express yourself. Why a form? How long? How short? Um, do we need to embed in the expression of the music the modern speed of transport? Does it mean that the concentration level is shorter because we have more ability to stock artworks and watch them when we want, listen to them when we want, and interrupt them when we want, and just hear them by pieces? And in fact, lose the capacity to keep a concentration for a long run, when ephemeral performances was the only way to have music, let's say in the 18th century into the 19th century, and performances were events where people gathered. Um, of course, the rich patrons who had the capacity to even become amateur musicians would mingle with the classically trained professional musicians, and they would read together quartets, quintets, octets. There would be happenings in the salons. Of course, all that would be very hierarchized by societal, those who have and those who have not, and the artist would be a trade, a commodity to teach their daughters because of their arranged marriages, to acquire a culture through them, and then to brag with their friends. It was a status to have a Chopin ballade purchased or commissioned for their daughter compared to other rich family. But all this was a microcosm. It wasn't reaching the essential groups of people in grand scale as publishers did in the 20th century. Competitions did, conservatories of music opening all over the world, Asia, after Eastern Europe, before it was Western Europe. And so classical music has become a universal stamp of culture, of status for the rich who can have the time to gather some level quality of good taste. You know, it's always the question about the newly rich who need to have the good taste in art, modern art, in paintings, in sculpture, in old art, in music. Um, all these things are not so democratized as is, let's say, television through pay TV, streaming channels. But at some point, classical music through films or even other support systems, video games, commercials, gains popularity, even if people don't know that it's classical, or they are afraid of it, they think it's not for them. Typical statement of so many people. And I understand that. It's not because I've been bathing in classical music since I'm a child that I'll ignore people's fears that it's not for them and therefore not reachable for them. I find that it's our duty to bring to them, not simplifying it, to the contrary, making it more meaningfully connected for them. I find that this is not a question of selling the essence of it, like jazzifying, popifying classical tunes in a desperate hope to not be unpopular. Let us make, a rap song of Mozart's 40th Symphony. It's purposeless. Rap is rap, pop is pop, classical in the sense of classical style, not just classical music as a generic term for everything that is reflective music rather than only entertaining music or background music. Music with literature, theater, opera, ballet, expression of the body's soul through the body itself, the language of body, the language of sounds is a hyperbola for the meaning of life, of meaning of humanity, beautiful storytelling. There's so much to say, so much to do, without to sell one's own soul at any price and say, oh, we need to catch the attention of these people because they wouldn't know better. I think to the contrary. I think we need to be more authentic than ever. And if our music is contemplative or reflective, we don't have to make it entertaining in the sense of superficial entertainment, because the musicians who practiced instruments before, and before that were amateurs in that sense, lovers. Um, what did they do? They appreciated the professionals. They appreciated somebody singing a specific volume, length of breath, and the good taste of an ornamentation, a decoration in an opera aria, in a fugue, the quality of the inner voices. This is acquired tastes that cannot be done of, well, most of the time it was because they used to play at some level the instrument, so they can violin, piano, quartet, voice, so they can appreciate it. And if you don't understand what is or what is not. You cannot know what is fake from what is real when it's presented to you in some way or another. And I think that classical music is an incredible vector of humanity among humans, and it has to be lived naturally. It doesn't have to be forced to be liked. It has to be, you have to bring people to it. And I think there is room for spiritual uplifting in all generations, in all levels of civility, of necessity to find a way to express their own angst and excitement. And the the impression that it goes through small groups of people, elitism compared to, let's say, stadium performances. Um, of course, it gives that illusion, but in fact, every human being needs time to reflect and to find something for spiritual uplifting. And music is a very beautiful vector for that. Without that, it's like without breath, without water, without silence, without um, compassion, solace, excitement, expectation, um, love, care, attentive feelings, reassurance in moments of tension and worries. And music responds to so many of these psychological situations in which we are plunged every day in our lives, regardless of how rich or how advanced our societies are and how we are more or less slave to it, or how much we own others. And of course, humans are not always and far from there with great humanity, but it's human nature too. And so it is, I think, very important that those who invested, like I am, in classical music is not only for the musicians who study, but through is to bring that added value to society. It takes so many years to grow into the taste of understanding and belonging to a tradition. And I find that classical music is an answer that most people don't even realize they need, but they do. It was really very important for me to share this with you because it's an earnest, sincere, perhaps a bit naive, but for sure honest desire to communicate it through music. The words of sounds. The sounds are universal words. In past, present, future, yeah, being modern is to be honest and sincere.